still fishing now. I've got 2 boys. And of course, one boy's fishing. See this lovely fish. It's quite something.
I was probably known as a Poole urchin, so I've been involved in Poole Quay ever since I was old enough to walk almost. Just know it like the back of my hand really.
Well, I spent most of my time going into Poole Quay, watching the fishermen and playing around the area there.
Always been fishing, and also earlier than that there was a boat called the Harry something that was involved when they was at war with the Spaniards, and there's still a couple still fishing now. I've got 2 boys, and of course one boy's fishing.
I worked with shellfish, and it was an ex-colleague of mine had left, and he set up a hatchery in Poole, an oyster hatchery, and we'd worked well together. So when he'd got it set up, he invited me down to come and run the hatchery for him.
And my earliest memory is playing around the old Lifeboat station, and you would be playing like tag. If you got your speed right, you could jump across up the person that's supposed to be tagging you couldn't catch you.
They were fishing families, and my grandfather was a fisherman that used to fish when the boats used to sail to fish. There was no engines then.
A call to labour exchange, given a railway warrant and a ticket to come to Poole in Dorset. They never even knew where Poole was, and he thought he'd come to heaven.
I lived at number 4 Seldown Terrace, which is now the Art Centre. It was full of reeds, we had tunnels everywhere, went all over the place.
We lived for a couple of years in Dorchester Road, and I can remember Camford Heath came up to Dorchester Road, or just Heathland right the way through.
The backwaters came all the way up to Emerson Road before the Poole Gasworks was ever there.
It's natural really, just in there. It comes back, I suppose, from my grandparents, and they were shipwrights in Portsmouth Dockyard. We went to the grammar school, and I was more interested in sailing and boats than schooling, and because it was during the war, so we had to get out to work. Albie Smith, who was the foreman of the chain gang in Newman's in Poole, he'd had great experience on shifting boats, and they had very many famous boats up there, and they used to pull them up and then skid them all over the yard up to 110 tons. The chance came up to buy a piece of land. I built a concrete framed shed there first of all, and gradually built up the machinery, and then we carried on with the engineering side, and I brought the first one out and immediately sold at least half a dozen. They were very good sea boats, and we built 450 of those, and then from that we went on to 24 foot.
I've met a lot of old people, and I know an old lady who was a witness to that bridge being opened. She was only 5 or 6, so she doesn't remember it in detail. All she remembers of that day was there were crowds and crowds of people, and she had to obviously stay with her parents. I done an apprenticeship as an electrician, and I saw the bridge job advertised in the Echo, so I applied for it. I got a letter on the Friday saying I was unsuccessful, somebody else had got the job. So I thought, that's that. I got a phone call on the Monday morning, are you still interested? The bloke who was offered the job doesn't want it anymore. So it was offered to me and I started on the Tuesday morning.
Things happen to people which you don't have any control over, and it makes your life better. So they said, well, Bert's getting old down the bridge, how would you like to go down the bridge? I thought, well, I'll give it a go.
And they had the old big copper contacts. When I first got there, they were all open. You had a rubber mat up in that control room. It was 110 DC, slap it in. And after you'd done it, for about 2 or 3 months, you could do it blindfold in the dark. Basically you didn't have to see what you were doing. You could hear. One clunk was in the wrong place and it was a click instead of a clunk or something after that style. And it was automatic. You actually knew. And you actually drove the bridge by sound.
And there was the guy that used to row the little ferry across from the customs steps to the pub that was on the other side called the Shipwrights. And he's a great big strong man, great big boat that carried 12, 15 people, and you had to put your thumbs on the seat to go backwards and forwards.
We put the bridge up, and the bridge used to go up for the petrol boats, and because the power station was having Coleman on the day, there was lots of big ships going through.
As you walked up the quay, all you saw was black, then a gap, then black again, and that was the coal boats that was bringing the coal into the gasworks.
Along the quay was all the big warehouses, all operational.
The whole nature of the quay has changed. The old buildings, there was a railway that ran down to the port.
Years ago when we had our kids, you would have walked along the quay, you would have had about a metre from the edge.
That was corals, that was the sand berth. That's all changed, right on down to the coal wharf at the end.
There used to be timber ships and clay ships. I used to go and help the dockers unload the timber ships. One of them gave me 10 shillings one Saturday, I couldn't believe it.
I suppose you would put it down to the development of Sunseekers. You could almost rename the port of Poole Port Sunseeker. You think of Jarrow and Northern Ireland and the Clydebank as being shipyards. When they all, between 1,500 and 2,000 people come out of that shipyard, you realise that this is a big business, and the whole nature of the port has changed.
The Swans closed down. It's the place is not the same. Shipwrights is gone, which used to be next door to our berth. Bolton Shipyard is no longer there, and to me, I don't come down there any longer. There's too much change. It's not like the old times.
I met my husband when I was 15 at a Saturday night dance. I met him there on 2 occasions, looking at him, not sort of getting talking, Anyway, the music started up from the band, and I started sort of jiggling about with one of the girls, and he must have thought it was a bit of fun, and he sort of touched me on the leg like that as I was going around, which I didn't like, you see. So when the dance finished, I went over, finished my orange juice, but before I finished it, I lifted it up and poured the rest of it all over his head. And that's how we first met. And he said, "Will I see you next Saturday?" I said, "We'll see." He wanted to get married on a Saturday, and of course there wasn't no posh weddings because there was no money like that, though. And when I come out, he said, "I've got 10 pence, how much have you got?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, we're going to treat ourselves, we're off to the pictures." That was the honeymoon, going to the pictures. So we went to the pictures, we seen this lovely film that I should never ever forget. It was a western, and they shot one another, and then at the end they both held hands like that, you know, as they both died. And of course, when I did lose them 7 years ago, it wasn't that hardly a night. I think about them all night time when I get in bed. I think about them when I'm there, and then when he died, I made sure we had the hands put on the tombstone.
My granddad was in the lifeboat for 33 years. Dad had done 33 as well, and I managed to do 36. Granddad was one of the last signalmen in the actual lifeboat service, and that was with semaphore flags. Basically, there was no radios in those days. Dad then, when I was born, went into the service. He finished up his second coxswain. By this time I'd gone in as a junior, and I worked my way up then over the years to be second coxswain. The one that really comes and hits you home is when the penny went down. And your mind then starts bringing home to you what you're doing. We got called out about a week later. So you had a week to think about what you're doing. Why are you doing it? But I said a week later we were called off to a bad one. And we went. We just went. We had a job to do and just went off. I was brought up with it, because with Granddad in it and Dad in it, I would be, when I was old enough to go out to the boat, I would go out. I think it's a calling as such, but I was brought up to it, so it was basically, I was going to carry on.
Poole was a real slum area all around that end of Poole where Emerson Road is, where I was born. They were all derelict houses, they've all been pulled down, that area.
You had a coke round and a coal round, your milk round and your paper round, and all these people in the road talking and all this going on. It was like a symphony going down the road on a Saturday morning, you know.
Coming from London to this place was amazing. You never knew who your next door neighbour was hardly. But when we came to Hammer to live, it was a village.
The tower blocks was built and whatever, so I was a kid during the time they were putting them down. I helped pull down several of them.
What's left of the old town of Poole is tiny. And there is masses of history here, but sadly we may be weak on protecting what we might not think is beauty at the time, but we'll be sad when it all disappears.
I've met the old fellow that used to run the bridge. Not trying to be funny, I was one of the first persons to crawl over Poole Bridge on my hands and knees. After visiting a club in Poole and gambling most of the night away and a few more drinks, and he thought I was asleep. I wasn't. He lifted me up, and the old fellow lifted me up. He said, "Right, off your way." Off I went back to the ship. Had about 4 hours skip. Came back to the same club and carried on gambling. I made a bomb that night.
Poole town is built on oysters. And when they were excavating there was 15 feet of oyster shells underneath there, and probably underneath where we are now. The people I talk to now, their lives have been very, very interesting. But they didn't think so. They were living their lives, and they were probably difficult to make ends meet at times. But looking back, it's interesting.
Our heritage and our history, it should be there for all to see. Living history, if you like.
I think people came to see the industry. They could actually get close up on it. They could walk past the ships, all foreign ships. you know, you walk along the quay, it was like, in a way, going abroad. The gangplank was there.
I think it's important to build bridges. We could do it and record it somewhere, so we can reflect on it.
He said to me, this is where it all started.
Yeah.
I never forgot his words. Poole Quay.
If you could sum up Poole in one word or phrase, what would that be?
Poole?
Poole.
Poole? Poole.
Well, one word is a difficult one.
It's like a village.
It's just a wonderful place.
Fantastic.
Yeah, go along with it. Safe. Beach life. That's 2 words.
Oh, we've lived here all our lives.
The phrase is pretty difficult.
The best place to live.
I've travelled quite a bit, not a great deal, but I would not want to live anywhere else.
Hi, would you sum up Poole in one word for us?
All right, brilliant. Then we can have it is wonderful. It's a wonderful place to live. It's the best place on the south coast to live, I think.
Small.
Thriving. Comfortable.
Really run down. It's
Interesting.
beautiful. It's really lovely. It's a very interesting place.
It kind of encompasses this sort of maritime vision.
Beautiful.
Spoiled.
Great.
We are all obsessed with the sea.
Fresh.
Home. Well, beautiful. I mean, look at it. Interesting.
Very good.
Poole represents that.
Wonderful place.
Fantastic.
In one word?
Fantastic.
Come on, Anne.
I would say interesting.
It's changed. It's dramatically changed.
Beach.
Interesting. Best place in the country to live.
I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. No.
There's plenty to do and see if people want it.
Now, if you'd asked us and given us half an hour to think about it,
Very thought about moving.